Hi there, and let's get to it. Today we're looking at working with timelines inside of the edit page of DaVinci Resolve, and later on we'll be taking a look at master timeline workflows. So there's quite a few ways that you can create a timeline. First of all, I'm going to create a bin for my timelines. And a simple way for me to create a timeline would be to right-click inside that bin, choose Timelines, and create New Timeline. I'm being asked which time code I want to give this, so by default we start with 1 for the hour and 0 for all the other values, and we're going to call it First Timeline. And I'll say Create New Timeline. So now you can see that I have this new thumbnail that looks a little bit like the video thumbnails, except it's empty. And it has an icon in the bottom left corner indicating that this is a timeline. The tick in the upper right hand corner tells me that this is the current active timeline. I've also now revealed my first video and my first audio track. Another way of creating timelines, so I'll just delete this one, is by clicking on a clip and creating a timeline using selected clips. As the instruction implies, you can select multiple clips to create a timeline. You can see that the timeline has now appeared in the same bin, and you can then drag and drop it into your timelines bin. If I right-click on top of a timeline, I now reveal several more options. For example, I could choose to duplicate the timeline if I want to continue working on my project without undoing the previous work that I had done. This is generally a very good workflow, but you definitely need better naming conventions than I currently have. On top of that, you still have the option of changing your starting timecode and renaming the timeline simply by slowly double-clicking on its original name. The last way that I want to demonstrate creating timelines is by the simple drag and drop option. So I can click and drag across these clips and just pop them onto the timeline. This is also an incredibly simple workflow. The only downside is that you do end up with all your pre-roll and post-roll included in the clips, unless you had gone through each one of them individually and placed your in and out points in the source viewer. When I right-click inside my timelines bin, I also see the option of importing different types of EDLs. There's a previous video dedicated to EDL workflows, so I recommend checking that out if you're going to be color grading or continuing editing work on a project that had previously already been put together. If I was to turn on my Edit Index panel, I'll also find that all of the edits currently in my timeline are now reflected inside of this index. By using my up and down arrow keys, I can navigate this index, and you can see my playhead is jumping between the cuts on the timeline. Each line in the index represents the video and the audio tracks, and would also represent the transitions if there were any in there. Just like a regular edit decision list, it also gives me a lot of information about the individual clips, their source in and out timecodes, their timecodes on the original timeline, their original names, and any comments or color tags I may have applied to them. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time.